He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, it's a Hawaiian shirt Friday on the Alex Marlow Show, but there's no Hawaiian shirts to be found. You know why? Because my wonderful mother-in-law, who's a listener to the show, got me a bunch of new Hawaiian shirts, and out of the chaos of pickup of the grandchildren on Sunday afternoon, I left them all, and I don't have a crisp one. I don't have a fresh one, so it's just going to be suit and tie. And by suit and tie, I mean my Newsmax formal wear. I've got the slippers on, and I got the elastic waist pants, but you know, it is business on top and party on the bottom. If you're looking at the screen, you're seeing John Carney. He is our economic and finance editor at Breitbart News, and we work on the Breitbart Business Digest together. The open secret is he does almost all the lifting, but I've got his back on it. He is a brilliant mind when it comes to economic and finance issues. He's also pretty good in some other topics too. And the big thing right now is that Trump really is going to do some tariffs, it looks like. And so I know John knows this issue better than anyone. And so I thought it was important to give his perspective to the audience. So we're going to start there. John, first of all, what do we know is going to happen? Just start really basic. What is going to happen?
So let's begin just last night. Donald Trump said on Thursday evening that he is going to do tariffs, that he was going to impose tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. A lot of people, including myself, said, all right, this gives one last chance. That it gives Canada a chance to try to avoid the tariffs, gives Mexico a chance to try to avoid the tariffs. We just heard from the White House on Friday that the tariffs are still coming. So whatever they were trying to do from the Canadian and Mexican point of view didn't work. You can kind of see what happened here, because the comments we're getting out of the Canada and Mexico officials is, well, we're prepared to push back if they hit us with tariffs. If you come to Donald Trump and you say, yeah, if you hit me with tariffs, I'll hit you, you're going to get the tariffs.
Yeah, he doesn't like, that's not how you negotiate with Trump. It's interesting. He's a pro negotiator, and he just wants, he wants you to be reasonable. If you're going to fight fire with fire, he's just going to try to bench press you.
Yes, no, what he needs to show now is that he's not bluffing, right? They called it, right? Like somebody said, oh, well, what if they call his bluff? I pointed out, you can call somebody's hand, but if they're not bluffing, you didn't call their bluff, you just lost the bet. And that's what seems to have happened here. They may have thought Donald Trump was bluffing. There was actually some reports that said maybe the tariffs won't happen till March 1st. The White House denied very strongly. It does look like they're going to happen. I do imagine, look, Donald Trump is a flexible guy. We saw that he was prepared to put tariffs on Colombia and was able to reverse himself very quickly once Colombia backed down from their threat not to take the illegal immigrants who had come from Colombia. They agreed to take them. Donald Trump dropped the tariffs. So there is a possibility, we have several hours to go before we reach Saturday, which is February 1st. That's when he said the tariffs would come on. So there's a possibility that the tariffs aren't imposed, or that we get the tariffs officially on Saturday, but over, the weekend, Canada and Mexico are able to talk their way out of it. But I think, in some ways, the wall just got 10 feet higher. When you push Donald Trump into, you try to push him back on this, it's now going to be even harder for them to get the tariffs off. It doesn't get easier when you push back on Donald Trump.
It's unbelievable, because I'm just tracking the Colombia situation now, and we've got a headline fresh at Breitbart News: a Colombia socialist president humbled by Trump tells illegals to come home. And Gustavo Petro, he's going to be quitting Twitter after his late night, probably drunken tweet that almost got his country into a trade war with America. Yeah, how all these Obama bros were out online acting like Trump made some sort of a mistake, and then he just completely bent this guy like a pretzel. And it's Canada's got to be thinking about this right now. I think let me share we have some audio of the announcement? Yeah, let's see. This is from the White House press briefing today. Let's play this.
Friends at Reuters are reporting that the president has made a decision on the Canada and Mexico tariffs, but that they won't actually be implemented until March 1st. I was wondering if you could confirm that and talk through some of the president's thinking.
I saw that report, and it is false. I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago, continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
The president yesterday said that last night.
Yeah, crystal clear messaging, which is refreshing. We haven't had that in a while. But John, tell me what do we actually think is going to be tariffs? It's not going to be everything equally. I'm guessing there's going to be some tariffs that'll be slightly different. But what do you anticipate will be actually how the tariffs are broken down?
So I think the very first thing is Trump is not going to tariff oil from Canada. That's going to be exempt because we refine a lot of Canadian oil here, and he wants energy abundance. He actually doesn't want Canada to decide that they don't need to produce as much oil. He would like them to keep doing it. So being able to, pipeline it into the U.S. would be, he wants that to continue. So there will be energy exemptions. There will probably be other exemptions as well. We don't know exactly what those will be. There could be a 25% tariff only on certain goods, but it's going to be aimed, apart from energy, at maximizing the pain on Mexico and Canada. He's not going to make it easy for them to deal with these tariffs because that would be totally counterproductive. What he wants is for them to say, oh, we can't deal with this. By the way, the Mexico economy is in really bad shape right now. They are, they had a fourth quarter contraction. They are not well positioned to deal with tariffs. So I think we'll find that Mexico in particular folds very quickly. Canada, I think, is likely going to fold. You've had a lot of provincial officials from Canada saying they don't want any part of a trade war with the U.S. and they will do everything they can to avoid it. Of course, it's up to the Canadian federal government ultimately what happens here. But a lot of the people, remember, the Canadian government has already collapsed. They barely have a government right now at home. And so it's very possible that that the tariffs will go away once they have an election and they have a new government that can deal more honestly and better with Donald Trump. It's clear that the Trudeau government has just completely failed to be able to deal with Trump.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a Canadian member of parliament reacting. I want to play this clip.
We represent the incredible regions of our beautiful country, and we are here for one reason. Our nation, our beloved Canada, is under threat. It is an economic threat, but it's also a threat to our values of decency and inclusion. It's a threat to our sovereignty and our very future as a nation. The threat comes, of course, from the President of the United States, a convicted felon and known predator. He's threatening massive tariffs to try and break us as a people. But the threat is also being driven by the hate algorithms of the oligarchs like Elon Musk. And there is the threat from people in our own country who would sell out our birthright to appease the gangster class from Mar-a-Lago. That is not going to happen.
Oh, my goodness.
That's not how you negotiate with Trump. He's a convicted felon. He's a known predator. He's from a gangster class. That's a guy named Charlie Angus. And he's going
to push the tariffs up 10 feet higher right there. I mean, that is
Oh, man, the tariffs got 10 feet higher. Is that not an SNL sketch waiting to happen? He's like talking, so he's just a polite Canadian, but he's saying all these horrible things about Trump.
Also, this talk about like our birthright, these are really dark terms he was using right there. Our values, our birthright. Yeah. Their values are not keeping fentanyl out of the U.S. Their values are allowing illegal immigrants to come into the U.S. Remember what Donald Trump was asking. I think this is an important point. Remember what Donald Trump is asking for here.
You know what?
not
No,
ask-
I want to pause before you do that because this is my next question. Is literally what is Donald Trump asking for? All right, so you know my commitment to you that I won't bring you products I wouldn't use myself or recommend to my own family. And I've got something today that checks all the boxes of health, longevity, and real measurable results. I'm talking about the Juvent Micro Impact Platform. It's cutting edge technology. There's nothing else on the market like it. You've heard me talk about how we sit around way too much at work and traffic, on the couch. It's a sedentary lifestyle we Americans have too often these days. So some of you get joint pain, you get stiff muscles, weakened bones. For me, I get back pain. But Juvent changes the game. Their platform uses cutting-edge science to deliver micro impacts that help you improve your joint health. The technology was developed for astronauts coming home from outer space, and it actually makes sense, doesn't it? I'll be honest, I ran this by some of the trusted voices in my life. I'm talking about board-certified doctors in my family, and they said flat out, this technology is legit. Here's why. When your bone density declines, particularly as you age, your ability to move does as well. So we don't all have time or the inclination to walk 100,000 steps a day. You've heard me say that. But exercising your bones keeps them metabolically active. And this is going to have downstream health benefits. Recovery, strength, joint pain, balance, whatever your goals are. If you're already an athlete, then you're still getting older, we all are, and you're going to need all the help you can get on your recovery. If you're getting up in years, maybe one of your parents is getting up in years, then this could be what gets them mobile again. Here's the best part. I've been incorporating Juvent into my routine with basically zero effort. I hop on the platform 10 to 20 minutes a day. I do 20 because I'm robust, and it helps activate areas of the body that are basically neglected when you're just sitting around and doing your work and scrolling or whatever. So I've got my routine down. In the morning, I get the editorial call going for Breitbart. I hop on my Juvent, and my team fills me in on all the news. I used to spend that time sitting on the couch, and now I spend it getting stronger just by standing and enjoying the view out of my window. So you can make your scrolling time more productive, your TV time, call your mom, whatever. It's the easiest thing you can do to give your body some maintenance and keep yourself healthy and active for the long haul. This is something you can do that's good for your health, that's safe, efficient, and especially convenient. Juvent's built to last. Every platform comes with a 10-year limited warranty with financing options, and you can use FSA funds. Plus, since the software calibrates each time someone steps onto it, the Juvent platform is a product that your whole family can use. So if you're not loving it after 6 weeks, Juvent's going to buy it back from you. So you don't even have to take my word for it. You can literally just give it a shot. Try it out. Go to juvent.com/Marlow and use the code Marlow at checkout for an exclusive $500 off offer. Take control of your health in 2025. See the results for yourself. Juvent.com/Marlow. Use the code Marlow at checkout. $500 off. Give this thing a shot.
All he wants is something actually really easy to give, which is Canada and Mexico's help in keeping out illegal immigrants, illegal drugs, and Chinese goods that, if they came directly into the U.S., would be tariffed, but are getting shipped into Mexico and into Canada and then into the U.S. So he wants their help on things that's why this claim about like a challenge to our values doesn't matter. Your values, I don't think many Canadians, if you ask them, would say, yeah, our values are getting fentanyl into the U.S. Our values are getting illegal immigrants into the U.S.
It is a affront to our national sovereignty that he's demanding we not let illegal drugs that kill Americans through our borders and into their country.
Right. I mean, that guy is putting basically a fentanyl needle instead of the Canadian, on the Canadian flag. Instead of a maple leaf, he wants a needle. That's crazy. I don't think the Canadian people are going to stick up for that at all. It's very funny to me to hear them try to talk sort of like all economic nationalists and yet oppose Donald Trump, for being an economic nationalist. I don't think it's going to fly in Canada. It's definitely not going to fly with Donald Trump. It's a really, frankly, irresponsible way for them to reply. Instead of saying, whoa, we're trying to work with you. If we need, give us more time, he says, the oligarchs, the convicted felon, he has declared trade war. That was a declaration of trade war. I don't know who that guy is.
But this guy, Charlie Anus, I don't know how much power he's actually got. It's because he's a member of parliament. I mean, Trudeau's in charge, but Trudeau's getting pushed out. So I don't really know. what this guy is, like, where he's just a member of parliament. I don't think he's particularly powerful. I just thought that was an interesting way that they're trying to push back, as if he's just going to be a tough guy. It's just what moves do they have to block Trump? What can they take from us?
It's really they can't take anything. They don't have anything we need. There's a reason why we have large trade imbalances with these countries. Look, we do have a lot of integrated manufacturing, both in Canada and with Mexico, particularly our auto industries, where there are a lot of parts that go into U.S.-made cars that are made in Canada. So I think it would make sense eventually to work this out, but it's not going. The economic damage done by even if tariffs went up even higher than this to the U.S. is going to be much smaller than the economic damage done to Canada, and even incomparable to the economic damage that will be done to Mexico if this doesn't get resolved rather quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So let's turn to Mexico. I've not heard them push back. Have they responded at all to this point, John?
I don't think they have yet said anything directly. I think they realize that they are in a much more vulnerable position. They really need us on their side. And frankly, we could do so much to help Mexico, and we want to. It is terrible that our southern neighbor has these horrible cartels that are overrunning the country, that are people smuggling, drug smuggling. That's not good for Mexico. It's terrible.
No, and they've commandeered most of the border state governments.
Yes.
So most of the border states, it's really sort of a narco state at this point. It's there are pockets of sanity in the country, but really a lot of these, a lot of the places where you wouldn't be going on vacation, they're basically run by the cartels, even at a government level.
And that's really hurt the Mexican economy as well, because a lot of Americans who may have in the past decided to take a vacation to Mexico are not going to, because of the crime problems that they have there, where, you open up a newspaper or website at any day and you can see executions, these, entire areas being run by gangs. Even if you're going to a so-called safe place, it's not clear how long that will be safe. We would like to help Mexico. We would like to have it become a safer, better country. Let's make Mexico great again. I think a lot of Americans would be behind that. So I don't expect that we will see as much of the kind of aggressive pushback we just saw. Although I will say, look, I do understand a little bit that these politicians have a native constituency, and they can't, you don't want to be seen to be pushed around too much. So I expect some tough talk, but I do think they're going to try to cut a deal to get these tariffs lifted as soon as they possibly can.
Okay, so we know that there's there's broad policy goals that can be accomplished with tariffs, at a minimum, the threat of tariffs. But let's say they go on for a short to reasonable amount of time. What industries are going to be affected? Is there any positives? And what industries could be effective in the negative that we should be aware of and in the immediate future?
So I think the negative will be immediately the U.S. auto sector, which has a lot of integrated manufacturing in both directions and up to Canada. Remember, like the heart of American auto manufacturing actually takes place pretty close to the Canadian border. And there's a lot of integrated manufacturing across that border. There's also a lot of integrated manufacturing that goes on with Mexico. So, yeah, that will probably be the hardest hit. The positives, I think that the U.S. steel and aluminum industries actually, which is where a lot of this started. Remember, those were the first tariffs Trump put on back in 2018. They could actually probably benefit a bit. Other industries that are suffering because a lot of Chinese goods are actually being trans-shipped, meaning, parts are being shipped and then they're assembled in Mexico, and then they come across the border. They're really Chinese, but they get a stamp of made in Mexico on them because, they were shipped in separate boxes to Mexico, put together in Mexico, and then cross the border. So I do think there could be positives. I think the greater positive, though, is the bigger picture. The world is going to see that Donald Trump isn't fooling around with these tariffs. He's, as I said earlier, he's not bluffing. Don't think you can stare Donald Trump down on trade. And that seems almost crazy that we have to say it, but it is one of those things where you probably sometimes need to prove that you can actually carry forward with your strategy. People will test you. If you say, we used to call this bazooka theory. People said, if you carry around a bazooka, you'll never have to fire it because everybody will be so afraid of the bazooka.
Right.
Eventually, you got to fire the bazooka because people will say, I don't even know if that thing's loaded, right? You got to show them that it's loaded. And Donald Trump is showing them that the bazooka is loaded. Okay,
so what are the industries where we feel like we could feel something right away here in American life? Like, where are people going to be ticked off? I'm mostly thinking about where is the left going to go? What's the narrative on Pod Save America this weekend?
They're going to say it's going to destroy the auto industry because of the cross-border integration. That is where you're going to hear the loudest screaming. They're going to say energy, but then it's going to become clear. We don't know the details, but I imagine there will be energy exemptions, but they're going to say, oh, no, it will hurt us because we need more Canadian oil. So I imagine that's what we're going to hear. We'll also hear all sorts of sob stories, right? Like where, somebody's business goes under because it turned out they sold mostly, there'll be some shop somewhere in, Minnesota that sells goods from Canada and they'll go out of business. And I'm sure right now there are reporters at the New York Times and the Washington Post just looking around for people who have been hurt. But look, it's actually not, there's not going to be an immediate effect on U.S. businesses. I'll point out the stock market reaction to this announcement has not been like a crash in U.S. equities. It's not great. People don't, it creates a lot of uncertainty about the future. You're going to get some sell-off from that. But people, our economy is not dependent on trade with Canada. We're not going to collapse. I mean, in some ways, with the Colombia trade deal, there was actually much more concrete things. Cut flowers before, Valentine's Day, coffee beans. The Canadian integration is, it's bigger. We do a lot more trade with Canada, but we're not dependent on it for items in the same way we are dependent on, 90% of cut flowers come from Colombia. So that would have actually been a thing that happened for a little while. I don't see it with any short-term impact with tariffs from Canada on Canada.
Yeah, and also 25% tariff. So, like, you think about like an avocado. Like, was an avocado now like $2? So does that mean now it's going to be $2.50? Like, is that?
Well, remember. Okay, so it's not going to even go up by that much. Remember the three people who pay for tariffs. One, the importer himself is going to pay for tariffs, but you get a currency adjustment right away. So that's the second thing. You're going to see the dollar strengthen against the Canadian loon and the Mexican peso. So that will actually counteract some of the effects of the tariffs. Also, the importers can't necessarily pass on the higher price. If you're a grocery store and you try to jack up the price of, say, avocados because of a tariff, you may well find that people aren't buying those avocados because they've just become too expensive. They'll buy something else. So the price will not be passed on one for one to U.S. consumers. And so I don't think the pricing effect will be that much at all. And it's also going to be just a one-time price effect. To the extent it does get passed through, you'll get a bump, but it doesn't keep going up the way Biden inflation pushed prices up month after month after month.
I've been out on the avocados. I find them really inconsistent during the winter months, and they're very high calorie. So I've just been, I know that they got a lot of nutrients. So it's okay. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So I keep saying to people, we're going to be okay. All right, John. Well, that's really good. Anything else on the economic front you feel like the audience should be aware of at the moment?
I think one of the things that we just found out today is that we do have to worry about Biden inflation. We got rid of Biden, but his legacy, which is going to be high inflation, is still going to be with us for a little while. And I think Donald Trump will succeed in getting policies that will bring inflation down through energy abundance, through growing the supply side of the economy. But that's not going to happen overnight. And so we should probably be prepared for another few months of liberals, ridiculously saying, Donald Trump's been president for 1 month and the price of eggs hasn't come down. Donald Trump's been president.
So this is big. So I'm
month.
glad we're on this because I want to ask you about this specifically because this is what is being discussed in left-wing circles. The price of eggs is not down yet. I mean, there's more to life than just the egg prices, but the egg prices are a big deal. So what are we doing?
Well, one thing I love is that these people who told us mocked us for caring about prices. For 3 years, they were like, you people, it's, prices aren't that bad. You should like inflation. Inflation's about to go away.
Yeah.
Eggs aren't that expensive anyway. And the minute Donald Trump came in, they're like, oh no, egg crisis, right? They immediately decided to do it. So it's totally disingenuous. They don't mean it. It is bad faith all the way. The price of eggs will come down. It is spiked temporarily because of avian flu. It's actually not part right now. The price increase that we're seeing, not part of the general inflation thing. One thing, look, I used to have chickens of my own, and the chicken. They were not killed by Biden inflation, but they were killed by a fox.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, they had my daughters named them very interesting names. One of them was called Nugget, which I thought was a kind of dark name for a chicken.
Yeah, that is a dark name. That is a dark name for it. I didn't go there.
Nugget is no longer with us, but
that's honestly like naming your cow Patty.
It is. So there's when you're breeding chickens for agriculture, the chickens that we turn into like chicken breasts and thighs and or whole chickens are actually very young. The chickens that we use, and so those can be replaced very quickly. That's one reason the price of chicken doesn't go up by as much as the price of eggs when you have these crises. But when you have bird flu epidemics and you have to kill a bunch of chickens, price of chicken doesn't go up that much because they can be replaced. The egg laying chickens actually take a lot more time to replace, and so those are more mature chickens generally. Replacing the flock of egg layers takes more time, so it'll take a little while to work out, but it'll work out. By the way, Alex, I just want to point out to our audience, I'm a New York City guy. All of my chicken knowledge is pretty recent since I moved up into the big dark woods of New England. But I'm really glad I learned it. It's turned out to be really useful these past few years. Who knew?
You know what I've been thinking about a lot with chicken is that I've got the rotisserie on the barbecue outside, and it costs like $19 for a chicken that goes in the rotisserie, and it costs like $5.50 for a chicken that's already cooked at the grocery store.
It's one of those things where you're like, man, I really want to use this rotisserie, but does it make sense?
No, my rotisserie got damaged in the rain, so I had to replace it. So I've cooked maybe, I would say, 10 chickens on it, and I've probably into that. It's probably been about $500. So we're running like $50 a chicken, and it's like $6 if I took one out of case. So
you want to know the economic
I'm not sure the math on that.
I can give you the economic explanation for why that is.
You know what you should do? You should give me a link to the Dave Ramsey podcast. Like I should be, if that's how I'm spending my time.
Why are rotisserie chickens so cheap? Well, I get asked that sometimes. And the answer is grocery stores actually use them as a loss leader. They want people, they're willing to sell those almost at a loss because they know people will come in to buy the chicken and then buy a whole bunch of other stuff that have higher margins. So that's one of the reasons that when you're buying the rotisserie chickens, they are really kind of extraordinarily cheap.
Well, this is, the audience depends on me for hot meat content. And I've got to know all the butchers very well in my neighborhood. And they explained to me, actually, it's the same chicken. It's the one that you cook yourself.
Yes.
Is the same one, the one that's cut up in the case, the one that's full. It's all the same. But the rotisserie ones that they do are smaller. So they do the smaller ones that they,
yes.
The ones that they cook themselves. So you're getting a little less chicken per chicken. but it's like a third the price of the one you got to cook yourself. So it's that's an economic thing, and it just reveals so much about a financial failing on my own part. So it's the audience should know that we're all imperfect in this world, but we have fun cooking chicken. John, I got more news. Do you want to hang with me while I go through the rest of the news?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
That would be great.
Well, all right. So we got somewhat new information on the flight, but not much. This Blackhawk helicopter was 100 feet higher than it should have been. A new video has come out, which is you could see this from if you followed the air traffic control footage. You could see that the helicopter, the Blackhawk helicopter and the plane were on an absolute collision course the whole time. And I just don't know how this was missed. It continues to be an incredible mystery. But now we have video where it looks like they just flew right into each other. So crazy stuff. We are lacking explanations. We're now in the phase where we're hearing about all these wonderful people who are dead now. And it just is one of these things where it felt like the social media world, the podcast world, the Twitter world, all of us thought this was going to happen. We'd seen so many close calls, those of us who followed the news moment to moment, and then it finally does happen. And people don't know what to do. They're completely confused. One reporter asked Donald Trump, do you plan to go visit the site? Like, what is that about? And Trump said, I have a plan to visit, not the site, because you tell me, what's the site? The water? You want me to go swimming? It's such a great point. It's like we don't know what to do. We were so unprepared for this as a culture, and it was bound to happen because we were doing things like all the woke stuff, the DEI. I don't know if the woke or the DEI is the reason why this crash happened, but we've been drilling into it at Breitbart, and what we learned was that there had been basically a de facto hiring freeze because in order to hit their diversity quotas the FAA was imposing, all of these white male applicants were getting overlooked or we were kicking the can, and then they were understaffed. And, it's a zero-fail job. You got to go your whole career without one mistake in air traffic control. And so why we felt like it was important for us to be understaffed in the name of diversity, if that wasn't the cause here, it certainly doesn't look good. And it's certainly time to go a different direction, I would say. John, you got to have a thought on this.
Yeah, there were complaints over the last few years while Biden was president that things were going wrong in airports, that air traffic control quality seemed to be going down. And we were basically gaslighted on that. We were told, no, that's not true at all. Nothing has gone wrong. Everything's fine. You people are just imagining it. Incidents aren't up. Everything is totally okay. And sometimes it does take a horrible incident to wake people up to the fact that something really has gone wrong. And I think this is one of those incidents. Look, you're right, by the way, about the way these diversity pushes work. Very often what happens is in order to increase the percentage of diverse people working in any sector, you basically have to stop hiring altogether white males. And that slows down your hiring. It does lead to shortages. You're hoping the older white males just retire or go away. The new people come in and they're not white, they're not men, and that helps diversify the workforce. That's really the only way you can do it. It's not a system where you can never get there in any speedy way by just saying, well, we're going to do a little more outreach. That doesn't work. So they end up actually doing the actual discrimination. And I am sure when we look into this, we will find that the air traffic controllers have indeed been practicing illegal racial discrimination against white applicants.
It's a guarantee. We all know it. Just to what extent, and can we directly pin this accident on it? And how quickly can we course correct? And that's why Trump is trying to create these opportunities for people to self-deport from the bureaucracy and just trying to make it so that they're not welcome anymore. I think sending a pretty clear signal. I think that's why he's got everyone going back to work, because all the people who want to undermine things from the comfort of their home office, you're going to have to at least come in and face a boss and drive in traffic if you want to do that. I mean, there's so much of the deep state has been allowed to operate remotely. and it just can't go on anymore. We've got to get past this. But the good news is that it really does feel like we're making huge progress culturally. The latest updates of the Democrat Party's popularity is at a record low. If you look at this stuff, you got Hakeem Jeffries is out there saying he wants to fight Trump's agenda in the streets. They're not trusted on the plane crash. It just feels like they can't shoot straight at all. Here, I got the Jeffries clip that Misty's dutifully pulled for us. Let's play this.
Going to fight it legislatively. We're going to fight it in the courts. And we're going to fight it in the streets.
I like the way that he talks. He talks like a Dr. Seuss poem sounds in my head when I read it to the kids. And that's great. Look, he's got a style, and he's a fighter in a figurative sense. But you know, John, I think I'm too sleepy today to go too all in on this point. But that would have been, if you and I had talked like that, that would have been New York Magazine would have wrote a long hit piece dissecting our entire life and calling up high school teachers to ask why we went wrong and what happened to us and why we're so crazy and violent.
We are never allowed to say that is true. We are never allowed to say we're going to fight people in the street. They'll just come take us away immediately. Breitbart editors promise fascist street violence, right?
Yeah.
They can say it and everybody gets the idea that, look, it's probably just a metaphor, I guess, sounds pretty,
it's just a metaphor. I mean, it's just a metaphor, but the point is you weren't allowed to say this. And now, because he speaks in iambic pentameter, he can now say it in this way. I love the iambic pentameter. It's great.
It's also, by the way, so off. As you were saying, look, the numbers from the Quinnipiac poll that shows the Democratic Party being insanely unpopular across the country, less popular than they have ever been, and particularly with men, and not just white men, just men altogether. The Democratic Party is at a nadir. They have really lost everything. It has not improved since the election. It's actually gotten worse. The Democratic Party is now more unpopular, and I think they are going to figure out very quickly that this is the wrong tactic, that opposing Donald Trump like this is going to backfire, that Americans actually are more supportive of Donald Trump than they were on election day.
Yeah, it's one of these things where I always felt this at Breitbart, where there was a cool factor that would happen. I had a famous one that I could spend way more time on a show where we have less to do, where the CNN did this hit piece package on me. And when I knew it was coming, they had me on something and I wasn't happy about it. So I was really upset when I learned that it was coming. And then when I watched the package, I looked amazing. Like I looked like the most badass guy around. And I thought, oh, so it's kind of cool. And them doing this stuff where they demonize us all the time, it's finally cool. Everyone seems to agree that the attacks now just elevate your profile. I think people are understanding that in a major way. By the way, I'm getting some breaking news, which is slightly irrelevant for a podcast that's on a couple-hour delay here. But the Army has released 2 of the 3 names of the crew members on the Blackhawk. They have not released the name of the female pilots. There's one female pilot. We're going to see what that's all about. Look, I don't doubt that we only have the best female pilots, but your mind goes certain places. Larry Elder used to talk about this with me 20 years ago about the problem with affirmative action is that it does make it feel like if you got one of the jobs on merit and you had black skin and you were a woman, et cetera, people are going to wonder if you got it on merit or if you got it on diversity. So maybe she was the best pilot of the group. I don't know. But certainly people are going to wonder, was she only piloting the plane because she's a woman? And if I'm a woman, I don't like that. I don't like that that's where the mind goes. And it's only because of this affirmative action stuff. And I'll say last thing, John, until I throw it back to you. Trump knows all this stuff. Trump didn't come out and say this is a DEI diversity thing right away, just shooting off the cuff. He knew there was something up that was going on. We don't know what he knows, but he knows something, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, it's a version of Trump derangement syndrome that's really embarrassing to the establishment media over and over again, because they think Donald Trump's just making stuff up. He says that COVID's a lab leak, and they're like, how could he possibly say that? And then, it turns out, he probably knew something. He just couldn't reveal the intelligence. The same thing when he's talking about what led to this crash. I think the safest assumption is that he knows, is privy, he's the president of the United States. He knew the names of these pilots the minute it went down. So he knows stuff that we don't know.
Yeah, the minute it went down, exactly. So
there's so acting like he's, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I would at least be cautious about that. People should assume that he's in on it more than he's letting on, in part because when U.S. servicemen and women die, you don't say their names until their family members until you've confirmed their death, first of all, and two, that you've informed the family members. So he's not going to reveal a bunch of information. He's going to wait for it to come through the proper channels. But that doesn't mean he can't talk about why this happened without revealing that information.
Yeah, exactly. John, your connection's wigging out a little bit, but I want to ask you one more. Chuck Todd's out at NBC News. He used to work over at NBC. It's CNBC. I got to tell you guys, one of the can't miss websites for me is still CNBC. I still feel like they basically will tell me what stock is up correctly, and they might use the wrong vocabulary, but they'll have data that I can look at.
They've got a lot of really good people there. I used to work with a bunch of them. I'll just name Jeff Cox is one of their writers. He's fantastic.
Yeah, Jeff Cox is great. It's someone I've tried to hire over the years, and maybe one day.
Yeah, I think that they are they are very good at being very straight news people. They are not very political, and they actually have. I don't want to name who the conservatives are who work there, both on air and for the website, because I don't want to put a target on their back. Yeah, but if you watch you can see that they have actual conservatives who work there. But as long as we're praising CNBC, I also want to say, look, people should also, should be watching Fox Business. All of the shows on there do a really good job of presenting what's happening without the spin or bias. Look, if you read the New York Times business section, it is it's an anti-Trump propaganda sheet. When they're reporting on tariffs, it's not even a report on tariffs. It is they're making a case against tariffs every time that they write about it. And so even their most recent reporting on Carolyn Levitt's announcement that tariffs are coming, it's just hugely. It just quotes people saying, "Oh, the tariffs will be terrible, trade war, ruin it." It's a case against it. It's not a report on it.
That's where they lead with the negative reaction. That's how New York Times move. But so Chuck Todd, who is a guy that got broken by Trump, he was a liberal, but you could have a conversation with him 8-9 years ago. Now you can't. So he's out. Does this mean anything, or is it just the latest? Do we care that Chuck Todd's leaving NBC? I can't tell if I care.
I'm actually worried that I could interpret this two ways. Maybe Chuck Todd was too reasonable. Remember that these people are losing their minds at these networks, and they might have been pushing to go. The problem might have been that they were like, no, we need to go to war. And he said he wanted to be a little more reasonable. It's not clear to me, and maybe we'll find out over the next couple of years whether they are course correcting. They should course correct. I think it's a matter of life and death for their business. And if I was a shareholder in any of the companies that own these networks, I would be pushing for them to just become straight news organizations and not sort of anti-Trump propaganda machinery. So we don't know where, we'll find out. I'm sure there will be reporting on what happened, but I'm not sure that he got fired for what I would call the right reasons. He may have either left or been forced out because of that they wanted to push even further in the, resistance news direction.
Yeah. So do you think he may have said, we got to cut it out? I don't know. I think he's broken. But
I watched him recently, and he was pretty good, though. Like on election night, he didn't melt down as much as the others. He seemed to be, like telling people, hey, look, America is different than we thought it was. We thought the election was going to go one way. We thought it was really clear, who the good guys were, but America had a different view. And I wonder if that kind of, openness to, strangely enough, openness to the democratic results of our election may have got him in trouble with the so-called defenders of democracy.
Interesting. I wanted to run one more by you, John, if I'm not letting you go yet. So J.D. Vance was dunking on this British politician who I wasn't familiar with, but I'm told is this left-wing kind of radical guy. And he had a take that I think I saw got 12 million or something views on X, which is, those aren't real numbers, but it still sounds like a lot, where he says that hold on, I'm going to get the exact quote. Misty, maybe if you have time, you'll make me look good here. Okay, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The problem with Rory, this guy Rory Stewart, and people like him is that he's an IQ of 110 and thinks he's an IQ of 130, and this false arrogance drives so much elite failure over the last 40 years. I'd never thought of this, and I think I don't know why I'd never thought of it, but people who think they're smart but they're not, I do feel like the country is largely run by people who think they're smart but they're not. Yeah,
or I would put it even a little bit more nuanced. They just think they're much smarter than they are. So, they're okay. They're not stupid. They're just not the super geniuses who can figure everything in the world out that they think. And in particular, in this case, J.D. Vance was trying to explain some very traditional Christian teachings about where our loyalties lie and the sort of the hierarchy, so that we care about God and our family and our country before the rest of the world. Not that we're indifferent to the rest of the world or that we dislike foreigners or anything, but that you are expected to care about God, family, and country in the Christian tradition. He was basically paraphrasing Aquinas. Actually, it's funny you brought this up. This is what I was reading before we were on air. Thomas Aquinas' commentary on Aristotle's Nicomachean.
It's the same here. I had the same book out.
So it was, he was quoting that. Rory tried to shoot back and say, no, that's not Christian teaching at all, which is absurd. The idea that somebody is going to push back. We actually saw a lot of this on X over the last couple of days, where you had people who either don't believe in God at all or have very radically left-wing Christian positions, trying to tell people, no, J.D. Vance is wrong about what Christianity demands for immigration or for patriotism or for foreign aid or for war. They trying to push back on him, and they were wrong. And a lot of them couldn't accept that. And I think that's why J.D. Vance, I'm just going to use that phrase all the time. I'm going to say, there's a 110 thinking he's a 130 at every opportunity. We should get it.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable because I've seen these videos online viral where where these younger kids, Gen Z kids, they'll guess out of a group of 6 who's got what IQ, and then they'll reveal it, and it's never what you think, and it's always the woke lib is always the lowest or second lowest IQ, and some yokel from the South you think is the lowest IQ, he's actually smart, and it's like this happens every time. And
we should sell a T-shirt that says he's a 110 IQ thinking he's a 130.
So many good T-shirt ideas. Misty had so many for me in the last couple of days. I'm not going to share them in case I can pull them off. I don't want to give anyone any ideas. But we should be really ramping up that T-shirt game. My T-shirt game's way off. All right. Kristie Noem's dressing as a ice Barbie. She's in full costume, full uniform, wearing flak jackets, bomber jackets, but she's doing full glam, hair and makeup. I think I'm here for it, but I don't know. We're in such a visual age. I think I like it. I was been calling for us to get all the celebrities out there doing the ice raids. I want to see Sydney Sweeney doing the ice raids. I want to get all of the whoever's the biggest star that's just going out there and just Joe Rogan's got to do one. Theo Vaughn. We got to get people out there with Tom Homan rounding people up and deporting them. So I think I'm good with it, but am I? I don't know. I think so.
I like it. So look, I like it in part because the left finds it so triggering to see her in uniform.
Yeah.
They were fine when their people dressed up in uniform, by the way. That was totally okay. There's a little bit of misogyny going on there too. If this was a dude, dressed, who was the Homeland Secretary, in his hat, nobody would have said anything. But there were, right-wing women get more misogyny directed at them than any other women in the public world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Carolyn Levitt, they're coming after Kristie Noem. I love how triggering it is. And she's not doing that by accident. She knew that like showing up with makeup and well done hair with the baseball cap on was going to drive people crazy. And frankly, I'm all for it. Like,
yeah, I'm good with it. All right,
crazy.
the FDA has approved a new non-opioid painkiller for acute pain. I asked Mrs. Dr. Marlow about this, and she did not have time for me. I also have a new medical-related sponsor perhaps join the show. I asked her take on that, and she didn't have time for that. I'm just really with the 4 kids. I'm getting really pushed down the priority list. But that's okay. She's a busy woman. I'll get a deeper take on that for next show. FEMA fraud. Scam artists are posing as fire victims to steal relief from desperate residents in the Palisades. This is just so offensive. This has affected people in my life personally. John, I kind of want your take on this because one of the debates we've had in the show is I think most of the audience thinks that it just tough noogies for LA. That we should just ignore them because they vote wrong. And I pointed out that the Palisades doesn't vote wrong. These people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes on average in that area in particular. And it's what's the point of a federal government if they're not helpful at moments like these? But I think I'm losing the audience here. But do you have a take on this, especially when you see stuff like people just impersonating the fire victims to get money?
Oh yeah, I mean, the amount of crime that has probably happened around the fire and the recovery area is got to be incredible. Just because there are a lot of criminal elements in the area, and it is very easy to put on to buy. You could also buy a lot of costumes around LA. I don't know if you've noticed that. You could buy a fireman's uniform pretty easily, and so I think there's probably a lot of crime that's gone on. I agree with you that it's unfortunate. We should not wish harm on people, but really the people to be angry about, if you are in the Palisades and you're finding that a lot of your fellow Americans are indifferent to actually hostile to you, you should be very mad at LA. The Americans are naturally angry at people who live along, the Pacific. That's not, just something we have. It's something we've been taught by the anti-Americanness of Hollywood. And that, so, people are taking it out on people who don't deserve it. But I think that's who's responsible for this.
All right. Interesting. John Carney, you're doing a nice job on all these sort of random topics. I want to do one email. You guys have been emailing me. There's amazing stuff, but we're running long. But I want to keep the emails coming. aloha@alexmarlow.com. Questions, comments, recipes, all are accepted, and many will be featured on the show. This is from Phil Hall. Hi, Alex. 2 different presidents, Roosevelt and Kennedy, over 50 years apart, used the 50-mile challenge to focus Americans on the necessity of physical fitness. Seems like it's sorely needed right now. The challenge is to walk 50 miles under 20 hours over 3 days. Many folks did it in one day, including Robert F. Kennedy. Just a thought, can Breitbart sponsor this effort for your listeners? I like it. My take is I think the walking is a little overrated because we've done nothing but talk about walking for the last 10 years and we've never been fatter. I will tell you on a personal level, I'm at my fittest when I'm walking, but I'm wondering if it's the walking or if it's more if I'm making time to walk, that means I'm not sedentary, I'm not glued to my screens, and I'm probably just living a healthier, more balanced life. So it might be a chicken and egg deal. I know walking is great for you. I'm not discouraging walking. I'm just being realistic. Are people going to get their 10,000 steps in? Because I feel like we've been talking about that for a very long time, and we're not clearly getting them in because it's not really working. But in general, I like the idea of maybe making a viral fitness challenge that's actually largely achievable for people, but maybe they got to work a little bit. Because if you set a standard too high, if you say everyone must do 40 push-ups, it's not going to happen. A few people can do 40 push-ups, but it sounds like it's not that much, but most people are not going to be able to do it. And it's just one of these things where maybe we got to do something else. Maybe there's got to be something higher. So I'm just wondering, I'm wondering how. John, you got a thought?
Yeah, look, I actually love the fact that fitness has become part of the cultural movement of conservatism.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's really good. And it wasn't like this 20 years ago, but now it is. I love the fact that the left now is like, oh, fitness is fascist. That'll be, I hope they follow through on that because I think it'll drive more people into the arms of conservatism because people know health isn't political. It is actually about, the quality of your life. So to the extent that the left wants to push away, be like, oh, no, you're body shaming people by telling them to stay fit. That's fine. We're going to win that. I do think that I love the idea of reinvigorating things like national fitness challenges.
Yeah.
I think that would be really a great idea to make, to also instill the idea that Americans used to have, but we've largely lost, that fitness isn't just about your personal health, which is great, but also can be a patriotic thing, that you need young men and women to be healthy for the sake of the future of the country.
Yeah.
I think being able to sort of energize the collective energy of the country behind that is important.
You get more work done, you live longer, you are less of a drain on the health system, which now I think $4 to $5 spent in the health system is done by the government. You look better, which is, I don't look at myself all day. Other people got to look at me. So it's all of it is a selfless thing, and you just feel better, which is nice. It's better for mood. So I'm all for it.
Smarter. I mean, I do my best work when I've had exercise. If I know that if I'm trying to figure out a hard intellectual problem and I'm stuck, going out for a hike, lifting weights, getting on my rowing machine, actually helps me overcome the intellectual problem. And I think a lot of people would benefit from more exercise. And frankly, I think it's wonderful that we as conservatives are able to push that.
It really ultimately, though, comes down to a mental question, is what gets us going mentally. And I was thinking about this because it really is, unfortunately, our biggest problem is we just eat too much. We're overfed, and that's it. And everything else is going to get better if we stop that. But that's not. It's too easy to talk about. It's much easier to talk about.
Stop eating. That's not going to work. Yeah.
Yeah. It is too, but that is the issue. And I know this because I've been playing with my, fitness routine, and I cut out some weight in the last couple of years, and it really just comes down to calorie consumption and everything else. Like right now I'm in a very not exercising mode because I've been in heavy research mode in my spare time, and I haven't put on weight, and it's because I know not to eat too much. And I'm not saying I'm at my highest standard for myself, and I want to get better, and exercising more is going to get me there. It's better for my mood. I feel better, look better, et cetera. But it really comes down to, if you don't overeat, solves most of your problems. And that is not, you're not going to get a million Instagram followers just doing that. You're going to have to show them a cool exercise to do, or here's what I ate in a day stuff. And it's not going to be just,
as you said also,
less?
Alex, I think when you're out for walks, hiking, exercise, that's usually time you're not eating. So it's actually, it is I think a lot of people sort of incidentally eat too much. They're sitting at their desk and they have
they're not thinking about
food over here, and they just, throw some of the food into their mouth. So getting beyond that helps. But I do think...
here's a good Lent for everyone. Here's a good Lent. No gratis carbs. If the carbs are given to you for free, don't touch them. Trust me to lose weight doing that.
Don't
if
go
it's
near
a free carb,
bread.
don't touch it.
Right.
No cake at the work party, no bread that gets dropped off at the table before the steak. It just, don't do that, and you will be, it's tough. If you got the chips and salsa, you can't just, the salsa's like a gazpacho. I know you want that crunch. I do too, but you just try it for a Lent. It'll be good. Someone's going to do this and email me.
I love it, Alex.
Okay, on a related topic, Phil continues, we have to stop normalizing obesity as a normal fat guy, as a former fat guy, I think, a formal fat guy. He wears a 3-piece suit and he's morbidly obese.
He's in black tie. So
he's a former fat guy. My motivation to change, among many motivations, were the people who were truthful about what I'd become. And he sent me an ad for a JFK fitness thing that I did not come through. So Phil, send me that again. But that's awesome. I absolutely love it. And I think it's a good motivator. It's a good motivator for people to just start small, cut out some food. And I think we're good. John, any parting words?
I'm just looking forward to getting to talk about this again soon with you, Alex. There's probably going to be a lot of developments over the weekend into Monday on the tariff stuff that we began with. We'll be covering in a Breitbart, and it'll be, some good, exciting times. And we'll also get to see how the rest of the world reacts to this. This is really a pretty exciting time to be an American, and, we're blazing new ground. I'm excited about it.
But we've been so distracted by our big problems in this country, like this one.
Yes.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
That's the big onesies going on. The
The
Vax
onesie.
onesies. Are you supportive of these onesies? Okay, Hawaiian Onesie Friday. It's coming up. We're going to have it. All
Let's
right,
do a
that's today's show.
in
And
onesie-
yes, John and I
onesies one
speak-
day.
Yeah.
Alec, we'll do onesies one day. That'll be fun.
No, I adult onesies. They've been in. I mean, we're so infantilized now. Why not? The John and I speak about once a week on the Breitbart Fight Club, which is our premium membership at Breitbart. If you guys are missing that content, you're missing out on a lot. It's a lot of what I do during the day is dedicated to that, and you're missing out on some really smart conversations with interesting people, if I say so myself. And that's it. Thanks to producer Misty. Thanks to all of you telling 10,000 friends and family members. Thanks to all of you for subscribing to the Breitbart Business Digest, Carney's baby, that I help him out with at Breitbart.com. And have a great weekend. Talk to you next time.